In today's hyper-connected world, where distractions are just a click away, our ability to focus and work on meaningful tasks has been severely compromised. From endless social media scrolling to binge-watching TV shows, we are constantly surrounded by instant gratification. This is where Dopamine Detox, a short guide to remove distractions and get your brain to do hard things by Thibaut Muris, comes into play. This book provides a revolutionary approach to breaking free from the grip of constant stimulation and regaining control over our minds. It sheds light on how excessive dopamine-inducing activities affect our brain's reward system and explains how we can restore our focus, motivation, and productivity through a structured detox process. The central premise of the book revolves around dopamine, a neurotransmitter in our brain responsible for motivation, reward, and pleasure. While dopamine is essential for survival and goal achievement, our modern environment has hijacked this system, making us crave instant pleasures that ultimately leave us feeling unfulfilled. The overconsumption of highly stimulating content, such as social media, junk food, and video games, has rewired our brains to seek out quick rewards rather than focus on meaningful, long-term goals. This is why many people struggle with procrastination, lack of discipline, and an inability to stay committed to tasks that require effort. Thibaut Muris argues that by temporarily abstaining from high dopamine activities, we can allow our brain to reset. This process, known as a dopamine detox, helps restore balance to our reward system, making mundane but important tasks, such as studying, exercising, or working on a project, more enjoyable and sustainable. Contrary to common misconceptions, a dopamine detox is not about eliminating all sources of pleasure but rather about regaining control over our impulses so that we can prioritize activities that contribute to long-term success and fulfillment. The book is not just a theoretical discussion but a practical guide that offers step-by-step instructions on how to implement a dopamine detox. It provides actionable strategies for reducing overstimulation, improving focus, and cultivating discipline. Muris also delves into the psychological and neurological aspects of addiction to instant gratification and explains how we can use scientifically backed methods to regain control over our habits. Throughout the chapters, the author provides insights into why instant gratification is harmful, how to identify our most addictive habits, and the best ways to gradually or radically reset our brain's reward system. He also discusses common obstacles people face during a detox and how to overcome them, ensuring that the process is not only effective but also sustainable in the long run. This book is especially valuable for anyone struggling with procrastination, lack of motivation, or compulsive behaviors. If you find yourself unable to concentrate on deep work or constantly falling into the trap of mindless entertainment, the principles outlined in Dopamine Detox will serve as a powerful roadmap to reclaim your time and mental clarity. By following the detox process, you can dramatically improve your productivity, self-discipline, and overall well-being. Now, let's dive into the chapter-wise summary of this transformative book. Let's begin with Chapter 1, Understanding Dopamine. Imagine waking up and instantly reaching for your phone, scrolling through notifications, social media feeds, and endless entertainment. Before you even get out of bed, your brain is bombarded with high-stimulation content, flooding it with dopamine, the chemical responsible for pleasure and motivation. Now, think about how difficult it feels to transition from this instant gratification to doing deep work, reading, or exercising. This struggle is at the heart of modern productivity issues, and it's exactly what Dopamine Detox aims to solve. In this first chapter, Thibaut Muris breaks down the science behind dopamine and why it plays such a crucial role in our daily lives. Dopamine is often misunderstood as a pleasure chemical, but in reality, it's the motivation molecule. It drives us to seek rewards. Our ancestors relied on dopamine to hunt for food and survive, but in today's digital age, we no longer need to work hard for rewards. Everything is instantly available: entertainment, food delivery, and even validation through social media likes. This easy access to pleasure has hijacked our brain's reward system, making us addicted to short-term gratification while weakening our ability to pursue long-term goals. Muris explains that every time we engage in high dopamine activities, like checking social media, watching TikTok videos, or eating sugary snacks, we are reinforcing a habit loop. The more we indulge in these activities, the harder it becomes to find motivation for lower dopamine but essential tasks, such as working, reading, or exercising. Our brains get used to the constant dopamine spikes, making everyday tasks feel dull and uninteresting in comparison. The modern-day problem is that we are overloading our brains with dopamine without any effort. For instance, in the past, watching a movie required going to a theater or renting a DVD. Today, we can stream endless content with a single tap. This ease of access creates a dopamine addiction cycle, where our brains become conditioned to expect instant rewards. The result? A severe lack of motivation, attention span issues, and an inability to do deep, meaningful work. So what's the solution? According to Meuris, awareness is the first step. Once we understand how our brains are being manipulated by instant gratification, we can start making conscious choices to reduce our exposure to overstimulation. He introduces the idea that small changes can make a significant impact. Even something as simple as delaying your morning phone check-in can help weaken the addiction cycle. The key takeaway from this chapter is that dopamine itself is not the enemy. Our misuse of it is. By becoming more mindful of our habits and reducing our reliance on quick dopamine hits, we can train our brains to enjoy and stay motivated for harder but more fulfilling tasks. This chapter sets the stage for the rest of the book, emphasizing the need to reclaim control over our brains in a world designed to distract us. Next is Chapter 2. The cost of instant gratification. We live in a world that is optimized for comfort, speed, and convenience. With the tap of a screen, we can order food, watch a movie, or distract ourselves with endless entertainment. But have you ever stopped to think about the hidden cost of this easy access to pleasure? Chapter 2 of Dopamine Detox explores the dark side of instant gratification and how it robs us of our ability to pursue long-term goals. Thibaut Meuris explains that instant gratification weakens our self-discipline and ability to focus. Every time we choose a quick dopamine hit, whether it's scrolling on social media, eating junk food, or gaming for hours, we train our brains to expect effortless rewards. This conditioning makes it increasingly difficult to work on challenging but meaningful tasks, such as building a business, reading, or exercising. A crucial point in this chapter is that instant gratification is not inherently bad, but it becomes a problem when it takes control of our decision-making. When we prioritize short-term pleasure over long-term growth, we sacrifice deep fulfillment for fleeting moments of joy. Meuris highlights that one of the greatest dangers of this addiction is the loss of time. We spend hours on distractions without realizing how much of our potential is slipping away. The chapter concludes by emphasizing that recognizing the problem is the first step to overcoming it. By reducing our dependence on quick dopamine fixes, we can rewire our brains to find joy in effortful but rewarding activities. Next is Chapter 3. How dopamine hijacks your brain. Have you ever found yourself refreshing your phone repeatedly, even when you know there's nothing new to see? This compulsive behavior is not accidental. It's the result of dopamine hijacking our brain. Chapter 3 dives deep into the neuroscience behind this phenomenon. Meuris explains that our brains are wired to seek rewards, but modern technology has created an environment where those rewards come too easily. Social media, video games, and even processed foods are designed to trigger high dopamine spikes, keeping us hooked. The problem? These constant dopamine surges create a cycle of craving, reward, and more craving, making it incredibly difficult to break free. The book also compares today's digital addictions to past evolutionary needs. Our ancestors needed dopamine to survive, motivating them to hunt, explore, and learn. However, in the modern world, dopamine is manipulated by corporations that profit from keeping us engaged. The more time we spend on social media or consuming their products, the more valuable we become as consumers. This chapter serves as a wake-up call. Meuris makes it clear that if we don't take control of our dopamine consumption, someone else will. By understanding how dopamine hijacks our brains, we can start taking the necessary steps to reclaim our focus and motivation. Chapter 4 is The dopamine detox process. Now that we understand how dopamine affects our behavior, it's time to take action. Chapter 4 lays out the foundation of the dopamine detox process, offering practical steps to break free from overstimulation and reclaim mental clarity. Muris introduces two approaches to dopamine detox: the radical detox and the gradual detox. The radical approach involves completely cutting out all sources of high dopamine stimulation for a set period. No social media, no processed foods, no video games, and no unnecessary digital consumption. This method can be highly effective but requires strong willpower. On the other hand, the gradual detox involves slowly reducing dopamine-heavy activities, making it a more sustainable option for most people. One of the key strategies outlined in this chapter is creating barriers to temptation. For example, deleting social media apps, turning off notifications, or placing your phone in another room while working can significantly reduce the urge to engage in distractions. Additionally, replacing high dopamine activities with low dopamine, high-value habits, such as reading, meditating, or exercising, helps rewire the brain to seek rewards from productive tasks. The chapter concludes with an essential takeaway: dopamine detox is not about deprivation, it's about regaining control. By reducing our reliance on instant gratification, we create space for deeper focus, greater productivity, and long-term satisfaction. Next is Chapter 5, Rewiring Your Brain for Success. Now that we understand the effects of dopamine and how a detox can reset our brain, the next step is learning how to rewire our minds for long-term success. Thibaut Muris introduces habit formation techniques that allow us to sustain a low dopamine lifestyle while maximizing productivity and fulfillment. He emphasizes the power of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself based on repeated behaviors. By deliberately choosing delayed gratification over instant pleasure, we strengthen the neural pathways associated with discipline, focus, and resilience. In an era where immediate consumption is the norm, this shift is critical for long-term success. Muris explores the mechanics of dopamine-driven behaviors and why we need to break free from our dependency on quick rewards. He explains that tasks requiring patience and effort, such as reading, deep work, or exercising, often seem unappealing because our brains have been trained to seek instant results. However, through consistent engagement in these activities, we can retrain our reward system to find satisfaction in long-term progress rather than momentary pleasure. One of the most effective strategies he introduces is habit stacking, a method where new, positive habits are linked to existing routines. For example, if drinking coffee in the morning is already a habit, pairing it with journaling or planning the day can seamlessly integrate a new behavior. This approach makes adopting productive routines less daunting and more sustainable. The author also stresses the importance of building self-discipline by embracing intentional discomfort. Since many of us avoid difficult tasks due to their lack of immediate gratification, Muris suggests exposing ourselves to mild discomforts like cold showers, fasting, or digital detoxes. By training our brains to tolerate discomfort, we gradually reduce our reliance on distractions for temporary relief, reinforcing resilience and mental toughness. A significant takeaway from this chapter is the emphasis on consistency over intensity. Many individuals attempt drastic life changes overnight but fail due to the overwhelming nature of the transition. Instead, Muris advocates for incremental progress, starting small, maintaining consistency, and gradually increasing the challenge. This method allows the brain to adjust naturally while ensuring sustained growth and productivity. In conclusion, rewiring the brain for success requires a commitment to restructuring daily habits, choosing long-term rewards over instant gratification, and cultivating resilience through controlled discomfort. By implementing these strategies consistently, we can reshape our relationship with dopamine and create a foundation for long-term achievement and fulfillment. Next is Chapter 6, Breaking Free from Dopamine Traps. Even after completing a dopamine detox, it's easy to fall back into old habits. Chapter 6 focuses on the hidden dopamine traps that can derail progress and how to stay vigilant against them. One of the biggest culprits is mindless consumption, scrolling through social media, binge-watching videos, or constantly checking notifications. These activities subtly rewire our brains to crave constant stimulation, making deep work feel boring. Murris recommends setting strict boundaries, such as designated screen-free hours and app limits, to prevent slipping back into distraction. Another dangerous trap is emotional dependency on dopamine highs. Many people use quick-fix entertainment to escape stress, boredom, or negative emotions. Instead of resorting to instant gratification, Murris suggests developing healthier coping mechanisms like meditation, exercise, and meaningful conversations to regulate emotions without overstimulation. He also warns about environmental triggers, people, places, or habits that encourage compulsive behaviors. If reaching for your phone is an automatic reaction when you wake up, placing it in another room can break the cycle. By modifying our surroundings, we make it easier to stick to low dopamine behaviors and avoid falling into old patterns. Ultimately, staying free from dopamine traps requires awareness and discipline. By consistently monitoring our habits, designing our environment for success, and practicing self-control, we can prevent relapse and maintain long-term focus and motivation. Next, Chapter 7: Cultivating Deep Work and Focus. In an era dominated by distractions, the ability to focus deeply is a rare and valuable skill. Chapter 7 teaches how to train the brain for deep work, a state of intense concentration that leads to meaningful achievements. Murris begins by explaining that deep work is challenging because our brains have been conditioned for constant dopamine hits. Every time we switch tasks or check notifications, we weaken our ability to concentrate. To counteract this, he introduces the concept of monotasking, focusing on one task at a time to strengthen attention spans and improve efficiency. A practical technique he recommends is the Pomodoro method, which involves working in focus sprints, for example, 25 minutes of deep work followed by a 5-minute break. This structured approach prevents burnout while maintaining high levels of productivity. Additionally, he advises eliminating multitasking, as it divides attention and reduces cognitive efficiency. To enhance focus, Murris also emphasizes the importance of brain training through boredom. Instead of seeking entertainment during free moments, allowing the mind to be idle helps reset dopamine levels, making deep work more engaging. Simple activities like walking without music, sitting in silence, or staring out the window can retrain the brain to resist overstimulation. A critical takeaway from this chapter is that cultivating deep focus is a long-term process. It requires patience, commitment, and a structured approach to gradually strengthen concentration. Over time, as dopamine levels stabilize, deep work becomes more natural and rewarding, leading to increased creativity, productivity, and a greater sense of accomplishment. Let's jump into Chapter 8: Building Long-Term Discipline. In today's world, discipline feels like an uphill battle. Social media, streaming services, and instant notifications are engineered to keep us hooked, making focused work seem nearly impossible. The modern environment is built for distraction, yet the most successful people have learned how to rise above it. In this chapter, Thibaut Murris unpacks the real secret to long-term discipline, not sheer willpower, but smart habit design. The key is to stop fighting against temptation and start removing the need for constant self-control by shaping your surroundings for success. One of the most effective strategies introduced in this chapter is friction control, a psychological hack that works with your brain rather than against it. Ever wonder why it's so easy to check your phone first thing in the morning but so hard to sit down and write a report? It's not just a lack of motivation, it's a matter of accessibility. Murris suggests making bad habits inconvenient, placing your phone in another room, logging out of addictive apps, or turning off notifications. At the same time, he advises making positive habits easier, keeping a book on your desk, prepping gym clothes the night before, or using website blockers to steer clear of distractions. By restructuring our daily environment, we tilt the odds in favor of productivity rather than constantly battling temptation. But friction control alone isn't enough. We also need momentum through small wins. In an age where we expect overnight transformations, many people set themselves up for failure by aiming too high too soon. Murris emphasizes the power of starting small, 5 minutes of focused work instead of an overwhelming 3-hour task, 1 push-up instead of a full workout. These micro-actions might seem insignificant, but they create a positive feedback loop, reinforcing discipline in a way that feels natural rather than forced. Over time, these small wins add up, forming the backbone of a long-lasting habit system. The biggest enemy of discipline, however, is emotional resistance, that voice in your head telling you, "I don't feel like doing this right now." The modern world has trained us to avoid discomfort at all costs, but Muris argues that the most disciplined people have learned to act despite their emotions. He explains that the brain adapts to repetition, meaning the more we push through resistance, the easier it becomes. The best way to strengthen self-discipline isn't to wait for motivation, it's to build systems that make action inevitable. This leads to the next key lesson: delayed gratification and mental toughness. Today, we're conditioned to seek instant rewards, likes, comments, quick wins, but the most meaningful accomplishments take time. True success comes from embracing the long game, whether that's mastering a skill, building a business, or transforming health. Muris encourages readers to engage in activities that build mental resilience, like cold showers, meditation, or intentional boredom, to train the brain to resist instant pleasure and stay focused on deeper goals. Ultimately, Chapter 8 is a wake-up call. Discipline isn't about punishing yourself, it's about working smarter, not harder. Instead of relying on fleeting motivation, we must design a life where the right choices become automatic. By controlling friction, stacking small wins, and embracing discomfort, discipline shifts from a struggle to a way of life. This is how a dopamine detox stops being a temporary challenge and becomes a permanent transformation, leading to greater focus, purpose, and fulfillment in an age of endless distraction. Next is Chapter 9, Mastering the Art of Focus. In a world of constant digital stimulation, our ability to focus is under attack. Our brains have become wired to seek novelty, hopping from one notification to the next, making deep, meaningful work increasingly difficult. In Chapter 9, Muris explains that the dopamine detox isn't just about cutting out distractions, it's about reclaiming our ability to focus deeply. To do this, he introduces the concept of attention residue, the mental clutter left behind when we switch tasks too frequently. Every time we check our phones in the middle of work, some of our cognitive energy remains stuck on that distraction. Over time, this leads to reduced concentration and increased mental fatigue. The solution? Time blocking and single tasking. Muris advocates for setting clear periods for focused work, free from interruptions. Even short bursts of deep work can rewire the brain to function at a higher level. Another critical lesson in this chapter is the importance of mindfulness. In a world where our attention is constantly being hijacked, training our minds to stay present is one of the most valuable skills we can develop. Activities like meditation, journaling, and even mindful breathing can help strengthen focus and reduce the brain's craving for quick dopamine hits. Most importantly, Muris emphasizes that mastering focus isn't about depriving ourselves of pleasure, it's about learning to control where we place our attention. By cutting down on distractions, creating structured work sessions, and training our minds to resist the pull of instant gratification, we regain the ability to think deeply, create meaningfully, and live intentionally. Chapter 10 tells about making dopamine detox a way of life. The final chapter of the book is all about sustainability. A dopamine detox is powerful, but if it's treated as a one-time event, the benefits will fade quickly. Muris stresses that the real goal is to integrate dopamine management into daily life, making it a lifelong practice rather than a temporary fix. To do this, he introduces the idea of moderation, not elimination. While extreme detoxes can be helpful for resetting the brain, the key to long-term success is balance. Social media, entertainment, and leisure activities aren't inherently bad, but they must be consumed consciously. He suggests setting clear boundaries, such as limiting screen time, scheduling dopamine fasting days, and prioritizing real-world engagement over digital consumption. One of the most powerful takeaways from this chapter is the idea of embracing boredom. In today's world, we fear being bored because we're so accustomed to constant stimulation. However, boredom is actually a gateway to creativity, problem solving, and deeper thinking. Uris encourages practicing intentional boredom. Spending time without distractions, sitting with thoughts, and allowing the brain to wander freely. This not only strengthens mental resilience but also rekindles creativity and inner clarity. Finally, he urges readers to see the dopamine detox as a long-term investment in their mental well-being. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. By gradually shifting our habits, reclaiming our focus, and designing an environment that supports deep work and intentional living, we create a lifetime of productivity, clarity, and fulfillment. The modern world will always be full of distractions, but with the right strategies, we can take control of our minds and shape a life that aligns with our highest values. So finally, what lessons we get from this book? Let's talk about the takeaways. Imagine waking up every day with complete clarity, knowing exactly what you want to accomplish, free from the chains of endless distractions. No more mindless scrolling, no more jumping from one thing to the next, no more feeling like your brain is constantly hijacked by quick dopamine fixes. This is the true power of a dopamine detox, not just as a temporary break from stimulation, but as a lifestyle shift toward focus, control, and fulfillment. Throughout this journey, we have uncovered the hidden forces controlling our behavior. From the way technology manipulates our attention to how our own minds crave easy pleasures, we've seen why modern life often feels so overwhelming. But here's the good news: you don't have to be a prisoner to these habits. You have the power to reclaim your mind. The key lesson from this book is simple but profound. Dopamine itself isn't the enemy. Our mindless addiction to instant gratification is. Instead of letting dopamine control us, we must learn to control it, using it as a force for long-term success rather than momentary pleasure. This isn't about eliminating joy or living a dull life. It's about replacing fleeting satisfaction with deeper, more meaningful rewards. We've learned how reducing overstimulation can reignite our ability to focus. By eliminating distractions, we give our brains the space to think clearly, work deeply, and create a life filled with purpose. We've seen that true discipline isn't about punishing ourselves. It's about designing an environment where success becomes effortless. We've explored the power of small wins, the importance of delayed gratification, and how embracing discomfort strengthens our mental resilience. Most importantly, this book teaches us that dopamine detoxing is not a one-time challenge, it's a lifelong practice. The world will always tempt us with quick dopamine hits, but we now have the tools to resist. We can create better habits, set boundaries with technology, and design a life where we are in control of our attention, our energy, and our future. Imagine a world where your mind is no longer controlled by impulsive cravings, where you can sit down and focus for hours without feeling the urge to check your phone, where social media no longer dictates your emotions, and you no longer feel enslaved to notifications. This isn't just an ideal, it's a reality you can create. By applying the principles of dopamine detoxing, you shift from being a passive consumer of distractions to an active creator of your own destiny. Think about the great innovators, creators, and leaders of history. Do you believe they built their legacies while constantly checking their phones, endlessly scrolling, or being distracted by every fleeting pleasure? No. They mastered their minds. They learned how to channel their energy into something greater. And now, with everything you've learned, you have the same opportunity. Dopamine detoxing is more than a productivity hack. It's a revolution in how you engage with the world. It's a decision to stop living on autopilot and start living with intention. You now know how to control the inputs in your life, how to rewire your brain for deeper satisfaction, and how to create habits that bring long-term success. This is your moment to take back control. So, as we close this chapter, ask yourself, are you living intentionally, or are you letting distractions dictate your life? Will you continue chasing temporary highs, or will you take charge of your mind and unlock your full potential? The choice is yours. If you embrace these lessons, your mind will become sharper, your goals clearer, and your life infinitely more fulfilling. The time to take control is now. Start today, and watch as your world transforms. If you found this summary insightful and valuable, Don't forget to show your support by subscribing to the Mindful Brief on YouTube. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this audiobook summary, share it with your peers who might benefit from it, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. Your engagement helps us create more in-depth and valuable content for you. Stay tuned for more summaries, insights, and strategies to elevate your knowledge and career. Subscribe now and be part of the journey.